and welcome to the Jada Willis Experience. I mean, I gave you a little bit of a teaser the last episode, but I really am interviewing a celebrity. And I warned him that I was going to give him a really big head. But Tyler Robertson is the CEO of Diesel Laptops, and I have the pleasure of just having a conversation. So thank you so much, Tyler, for agreeing to be on the show.
Yeah, I mean, the pleasure's all mine. Like, I just love talking business, entrepreneurship, leadership, all the things, right? So, like, this is my passion. This is what I love doing. So, yeah, thanks for inviting me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for everyone to know, I've been drawn to Tyler for a long time, but in watching his journey unfold as the founder and CEO, but really you share so much from a LinkedIn perspective. We were just talking about that before we started the recording, and there's just so much of real substance that you're sharing in regards to leadership insights, insights about your organization, and then just being an entrepreneur in your journey. And so I usually just head in there and ask you some really tough questions, but I'm gonna go easy on you at first, okay?
That's totally fine. I can totally take it. And yeah, like I just talking about sharing my story. Like I needed somebody to talk to, and I needed some way to just explain how I was feeling. I didn't have like
Right.
a business partner, investors, or any of that. So I was like, I remember starting a LinkedIn account. Like I'll just start posting stuff of what's going on in my business and my life here, and it just kind of took off from there. So it's been nice to have an outlet, and it's really allowed me to network with a lot of people, including you. So
That's
it's
true.
it's really been a great tool.
Absolutely. And I think that I'm so impressed also that your level of humility. I mean, right now you're the CEO of a $100 million organization that you started, and that's the cool part, that you started this organization, and you are the same guy that I talked to like several years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the same person in my garage just trying to figure out how to make some beer money, right? Like I don't. It's weird. I talk about it a lot. Like it's almost like monopoly money at this point. Like I can't comprehend, the dollars and the impact and all the things. Like you just don't you
Yeah.
don't see it or understand. It's hard to see it. So for me, it's just always been the same thing. Like let's just go help people solve problems and take care of the customers we got. If we just do
Ah,
those things, they'll just keep coming back to us. And it's just been that mentality since my garage, and we just try to keep doing it now. It just gets, obviously a lot of challenges. Things get
mhm.
harder, more difficult.
Exactly.
They're hard
Different
to
kind of
steer.
problems.
Yeah, they're all. People tell me that all the time. They're like, "Man, Tyler, you got some good problems." I'm like, they are good problems, but they are problems, and it's really caused me to change who I am and what I do, and how I lead the company, and the things we do over here. So it's been a crazy journey so far, and I'm just like really excited to see where it keeps going.
Absolutely. Crazy journey. I want insight into that. So, just for everyone that may not know Diesel Laptops, so tell us what you do, what you offer, and just a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. So, I mean, what our company does is we provide efficiency solutions for commercial diesel powered equipment. So that's on highway and off highway equipment. So everyone's
Mhm.
like, oh, is that big of an industry? Over $80 billion last year were spent just fixing commercial trucks, not including equipment. And that's just North America. So it's a huge, huge, huge market. And people don't realize everything they buy, eat, sleep, wherever, like a diesel
Yeah.
engine touched it a couple times in the supply chain. So it's a big thing. And yeah, it was 8 years ago in my garage. I had no business plan. I started with like $1,000. I just thought
Yeah.
I'd like honestly just make a little extra side hustle money.
Mhm.
And like you said earlier, now we'll do over 100 million in revenue this year, give or take. That's our run pace for. We got over 200 employees, and
Wow.
it's become a thing. We have locations throughout the United States. We got eyes on international expansion. Like there's just so many things going on. And it's been a ride and a journey getting there.
Wow. And that's really why I also want to pick your brain. But first off, congratulations. And I'm sure you hear that a lot of wow, like you must be so proud of yourself and your team
Yeah.
because that's a big deal.
Yeah, I am, and it's weird. Like, I'm one of those people where there's a good and a bad to this. Like, I'm never satisfied with what we did. So, like, even when we
Mhm.
have record months, I'm always like, well, look at these other things we could do better, and we could do these things. So, like, I just know that's me, and that's there's a good side and a bad side to that coin.
Mhm.
I just know like there's no end to it for me and where we want to go and the things we can do, and I love doing what I do today. But it's also really I push employees here, I push the departments here, the people we have here to be like, all right, how do we keep growing at 30% year over year? Like, and that number
Wow.
as your revenue gets up, gets bigger and bigger. And you gotta keep coming up with things and keep changing the way you operate. And it's just a constant cycle of change. And that can be hard for a lot of people, but it's what we have to do if we want to keep growing.
Yeah, I actually just spoke about this about as every CEO, like they need to think about being futuristic, right? And that there's no stop to that. You can't just be like complacent or just say, "Hey, I've really, I've done a great job here. We're good to go." And I
Yeah.
even use the example of Blockbuster, but but you have to constantly be thinking about trends, the market, what are even other factors. I mean, it could be external employee base, getting the right talent. So it's constantly thinking about what's next. But for you, and I even before I get into that question, I have an HR question. Um, so tell me about what you felt like the differences in having 15 employees than having, maybe 150 employees. Like
Yeah.
that's a big culture shift.
Yeah, I remember 15 employees because I mean, I put the job listing up, I interviewed them, I hired them, I brought them out to lunch, I got to know who they were. You're really a close knit group because you're interacting with each other all the time. And I remember
Mhm.
walking around the office at about 100 employees or so,
Mhm.
and I was just like, I'd see people in the hallway. I mean, there were some weeks we'd hire like 7 new people or 8 new people,
Wow.
and I remember just walking around being like, okay, is that an employee? Is that someone's spouse? Is it a vendor? Is it a customer? Like, who is that person?
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, we got to do something different here. So every new employee now, they come sit with me for 30 minutes.
Love it.
And, I'll say a lot of them are nervous, like, oh, why do I go talk
Yep.
to the CEO? But we come in next, I'm like, I want to know who you are. I need to put a face to the name and like, where'd you come from? Why are you here?
Mhm.
What are your ambitions? And you start to learn a lot about people real quick if you can get them to open up a little bit. And some open up, some don't. But it's a chance for me to have a little bit of FaceTime and at least try to remember their names. So I'm walking through the hall, I can be like, "Oh, hey Joe, how's it going?" Or "Hey Kara, how's it going?" Like
Right.
I think it's important because I worked at a company before
Mhm.
where the owner, the executives would walk around, they didn't even know the names of the employees that were there, and they've been there
Uh,
for years in a lot of cases. So I'm like,
right.
don't want to be that guy because
Yeah.
I know you need to have employees with you for a long time to be successful in your company. If you have high turnover, you're going to struggle running your business. If you have high turnover, it's a problem. So you gotta do what you can to retain the employees and keep them there and keep them happy.
Yeah, I love that from a employee engagement perspective. I think that your employees feel valued and that you're taking that time and at 200 employees. Now it's different. If someone's listening to this and be like, 10 employees is one thing, 200 employees. So as they're coming on, especially those weeks where it's eight, employees, wow, that 30 minutes adds up. And so I kind of actually want to segue into how do you prioritize your days, your weeks? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean it's changed. Like I can tell the audience this. Like our company's hit plateaus in revenue a couple
Mm,
times, and every time it wasn't everything else. It was me because I was doing a thing
mm,
I was comfortable with and not doing the things that I needed to do to keep growing the company.
wow.
So prioritizing the day, it's way better now. Like those early years, it was like
Mhm.
I was working, 16-hour days, answering the
Yeah.
phone. I was putting out fires all the time. You had new employees, and you're growing so fast. You're doubling revenue every 12 months. Like
Wow.
you don't have people you can trust. Today, it's a lot different. Today, I have
Mhm.
a C-suite we just established. I got people that've been here
Great.
for 5 or 6 years now. Like it's a lot easier. But I always try to, if I'm doing something that isn't worrying about working on the future, like I know I'm working on the wrong thing. So a lot of what I
Mm,
need to do is just keep working on where do we need to be a year, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months from now. So like the current thing we're working on right now is what's our 5 year
mhm.
plan? What are our 5 year goals? Where do we want to get
Right.
to? Like, great. Now we know where we're at. We know the goal. Like, what are the steps in between to get there? And how do I go support the executives that are reporting to me and make sure they're successful and can go execute on their plans? So strategic
Mhm.
planning is a
Mhm.
big part of what you have to do once you hit a certain size and
Yeah.
spend your time doing that. Like it was just that's not what I was doing this first couple of years. That's what I do. That's what I have to do now.
When do you think that shift happened? Was it an employee marker or was it a sales
Yeah.
milestone?
Yeah, no, I know exactly when it was. It was 20 million in revenue is when we hit it. And it was the
Very
year like we'd have like the months were really sporadic. Like we'd have a great month, not so great month. And it would just like zigzag up and down. And when you looked at
yeah.
like the last 12 months, you're like, okay, like we're not we're no longer doubling revenue. Like what is going on? Like I alluded to earlier, I was like nonstop line of people coming to my office asking questions. I'm home put out fires all day long. Like
Mm,
we were working in the business and on the business.
mm,
And we really had to start figuring out, okay, well, we're never gonna get out of this way we are. And I never understood why companies get stuck at revenue thresholds. Like
mm,
I've always seen it. Like people
mhm,
grow to a certain size or the same size for 10 years or 20 years. I
right.
didn't get it. I get it now because I had to stop doing the things I was doing and start doing new things I was totally uncomfortable with. But until you do that, you can't move ahead, and that's the reality of it. And sometimes it sucks because you really love doing those things you were doing, and now you got to be
Yeah.
like, this is somebody else's job now. I got to go do something I'm uncomfortable with. But that's how you grow as a person, as a leader, and that's how your company grows.
No, it's perfect, and I yes, it's about pushing yourself outside that comfort zone, but what like, give us an example of something that you were not comfortable with doing, because it's not about it's still in alignment with core values, it's still in alignment with, maybe your path forward, but is it a task? Is it habit forming? You know, help me think
Yeah,
about.
I mean, strategic planning. Like those
Yeah,
first 3
right.
years, like we never even thought about like what's our 3-year goal. Like that was never even a question that we even
Mhm.
asked ourselves. We never sat down and really planned out things and decided like what key metrics should we look at. Like those were all things I've never even done before. Like I used to work for other people. They did that for me, and they'd be like, "Hey,
There
here's
you
your goal, right?" So now I'm like, "Oh wait, I actually got to go figure out who do we want to be in three
go.
years and 5 years." Like it's a really laborious process to
Mhm,
go through because you
mhm.
have to get it's not just you have to get everyone that reports and everyone that has any authority to like get on the ship. And
Get their buy-in, yep.
yeah, I mean, when we went through that process, we had a couple managers that like they tapped out. They just said like, this is not, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I want to go back to like selling or tech support or whatever it was. And we had some people that really wanted to, but didn't have the skill set or the aptitude to learn. And we were like, okay, we gotta figure out something different for you. So that's
Yep.
what sucks is as you grow, you
Mhm,
have to people that were working really well for you before don't fit that new role that you have in your company. And it's
mhm.
unfortunate, or sometimes it's really fortunate, but you have to put the right people in place to keep growing your company. So
Yeah,
that's
because you're a different organization, a year ago, right? And so it is a constant assessment of, people, talent, your benchmark, or your talent bench really, and just thinking through, are these also the folks, and how do I leverage the current talent that I have? And just because, someone's in a role today doesn't mean that they can't be a part of the organization tomorrow. It just means, hey, how can we best leverage your strengths and also, ensure that you feel engaged and valued. And you're probably going to feel that way if you're doing the work that you really love.
so I have yeah, it's like a story on that. Like our sales manager, like he came to like work with me when I was at my dining room table. Like he was like employee number 2.
It's
So
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
great sales guy, and he really created the strategy on how we scaled up and how we sold these things and overcame objections and all. He
Mm,
did the whole thing for me. And he's in his late 50s, early 60s. He lives in
mhm,
Kentucky. And then we started growing, and we hired a bunch of new salespeople, and they're all younger people, 20-year olds.
mhm,
And it's hard when you're remote, and there's a big age gap and difference there.
mhm,
And there got to be a point when we kind of hit that 25-ish 30 million number where it
mhm.
was I was having all kinds of sales problems, and he was
Ah,
not able to handle it and manage it.
mhm,
And I was dreading having the conversation with them, like, man, I gotta like you got me here, but I gotta replace you. Like I was worried about that, but I'm like, I gotta do it. So I brought him to
mhm.
lunch, came on a visit, brought him to lunch, and I just say, hey man, this isn't working anymore, and here's my reasons why. And he was like, literally, Tyler, like, thank God. He goes because he's like, I don't like it anymore either. I'm not doing
That's
a
right.
good job. I just don't want to tell you because I don't want to disappoint you. So I wasn't going to say anything. He's like, I'm drowning. Like I want out. I just want to
Yeah.
go back to selling. And that's I think a lot of people don't realize is those are
Mhm.
sometimes tough conversations to have with people, but they're feeling the same way on
Right.
their side and not saying it for whatever reason. So it's not always a bad thing. And now today he's not a manager. The dude's making more than he was a manager because he's got
Yeah.
all the business accounts and sells a lot for us. So it worked out great for everybody in the end. But you have to do that in your organization if people aren't cutting it and you have a place you want to get to.
Absolutely. You have to have that level of accountability. Not everyone gets that lucky, but people like employees don't show up to work and want to do a bad job. Like that's
Yeah,
not truly the case. And so usually they already know and it is a relief. But what was the best thing about this is that you also said, "Hey, like well, go back to selling." It doesn't mean that you should go somewhere else. It means that, we have a place, just let's play to your strengths here and not
yeah.
overwhelm you. But but
Yeah, I mean, people think they want to be managers or leaders until they realize what that role is really like. It's
exactly.
it kind of sucks. Like I'm accountable for everything all of a sudden, and I get extra pressures, and it's totally different
Right.
skill sets, right? Just because you're great at
Mhm.
sales or great at cooking or
Mhm.
whatever doesn't mean you're going to be a great restaurant owner. It's just a totally different skill set, and people think those
Completely.
skills are just innate. They're not. They're learned skills like anything else.
Mhm.
And it takes time and
Totally agree.
practice and consistency to do those things.
I 100% agree. I believe that, there's this whole debate of are people born leaders or, are is it acquired and all that. And I think, there are natural tendencies for sure that, you can be born with, but listen, there's so much learning, especially because I think the face of leadership is changing and what is asked, what is required of you. And what I think I like about you is that you seem so cool, calm, and and a lot of folks are like, "Yeah, man, if I was leading $100 million company, I'd be pretty calm too." Nope. You
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, there's pressure on me and stresses in my life too, right? Like it's not easy. You have a lot of people that are depending on you to make decisions, and I can say one of the like I grew our company and I didn't do it the normal way. Like normal way now is like you go raise capital and get investors and do the thing.
Yeah.
We didn't do that. We bootstrapped it. So, and I've always been debt adverse. So I can tell the audience like I sleep really well at night because I have no debt. I got cash in the bank, and we go at our pace. So we try to de-risk yourself. And I think especially when people are
That's
highly
great.
leveraged and COVID happens and things go bad, like that's when bad things happen. So as much as we take risks and kind of reinvest in ourselves all the time, it's always calculated, and we always don't take a risk we can't afford to lose. But I'm way more on the cautious side than most people probably think
Mm.
we are over here. But that's part of it, right? And part of it is, yeah, things are going good. We're growing fast, but all those things only happen
Mhm.
because you work really, really hard and plan and strategize and
There
make
you
sure they are and stay on task and do all the things that you're supposed to be doing. And a lot of people miss that in their own company. They just get caught up, like I said, in the day to
go. Mhm.
day. They don't work on the company, and that's really a critical thing.
I think that you're hitting on it because I'm talking to a lot of CEOs that are experiencing burnout right now. And I want to kind of just again pick your brain, get your thoughts on what is it what is it like to experience? I mean, I know that I've experienced some burnout, but it's also because if you don't have the right, my opinion is, routines in place, focus and priorities, if you kind of get away from, your North Star, then that's really whenever some of that burnout starts to occur. I guess, how do you stay avoiding the CEO burnout?
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me this winter. Like I got some personal life stuff going on, and then
Hmm.
we transitioned to a new ERP system, and we weren't sending invoices to customers, so cash wasn't coming in. And then the supply chain bullwhip effect, everything showed up at once. I wanted to get paid, so there was things going on in my life, and I never knew what like depression was or seasonal depression. But
Hmm.
all of a sudden you're not sleeping good, and your health kind of
Hmm.
starts having weird issues, and like you just get cranky, and all the and you're just like, I don't want to work. I just want to go do whatever else. And like, I was there this winter. And for me to get out of it, it was just like, okay, I got to accept what it is. And like, okay, what can I change here? I can't, there's some things I can change. There's some things I can't. So let me just focus on what I can. Let me start eating better and exercising every day. And let's make sure we have the right focus at work and we work on the right things. And we start really digging into this. Like at the end of the day, you just got to look in the mirror and be like, look, I can only change what I can affect here. There's so many other things that go on outside my realm of influence. And I've just learned to be like, I can't change those. I can prepare for them. I can deal with them when they come at me, but I
Hmm.
just have to realize like I can only do so much. There's only so many hours in the day, and this is where I'm gonna choose to spend my time. But yeah, burnout's a real thing. I've seen it with a lot of my
Hmm.
employees. I'm like, look, I don't need you here till 7 o'clock at night. Like
Hmm.
whatever you're working
Exactly.
on, it'll be here tomorrow. Like there's nothing that critical here. And some employees are like that. Um, and I try to discourage it. And I can like I leave every day at 4 o'clock. Like I'm not here past 4 o'clock any day of the week. So I'm like it'll be there tomorrow. I can go home and do emails if I want to. Like I don't need to be here burn the midnight oil anymore.
Right.
Wasn't like that in the beginning, but it is that way today. So trying to set that good, personal life, social life, work life, religion, health, you
Mhm.
got to balance out and figure out what's really important to you.
So when do you start your day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm up at 5:30 every day. I'm in work by like 6:30 ish or so. So
Yeah,
I'm,
no
I'm
judgment
here.
zone here. No
Yeah,
judgment.
I'm here early, but I get more done in the mornings because you don't have all the distractions and emails and meetings. You kind of knock things out. I usually work one day from home Fridays. Usually it's work from home on Fridays, and truth is like
Perfect.
a half day at best, especially in the summer when the lake's calling my name or you have
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
outside. Like I call it an early weekend. I worked hard, but I
Exactly.
do have the travel and all the stuff that happens as well. So it all comes with it. So it's trying to balance it all out the best you can.
Yeah, I know I'm such a big nerd. I ask every guest this practically is, the things that we're talking about is about, your morning routine and, your schedule. Cause like, I think it's very important. I'm probably really obsessed with the fact that how you start your day really will dictate what your rest of the day will look like. I truly
Yeah,
believe
Yeah, no, I've noticed that when I'm traveling, I'm out of routine, it feels different than when I'm like in my
that.
routine every day, right? So yeah, like there's definitely a daily work routine that I go through and make sure things are done and going. But
Yeah.
it's really trying to carve out time to work on the future. Like I remember 3 years ago we
Hmm.
did a time study, right? We all had to
Hmm.
do one for a week in like 15 block increments. And if no one,
Awesome.
if people haven't done that before, like it's actually really
Please do.
eye opening where you learn that where do you actually spend your time, and and it allows you to be like, okay, I gotta adjust. Too much social media time, too much coffee break time, whatever it is, or too much time on things that didn't really matter. So you got to be efficient during the day, and we don't if we have an hour meeting and it doesn't take an hour, we're not sitting there for an hour gabbing. It's like, hey, we're in a meeting, let's go, let's start on time, let's get through this thing. My questions are answered, we're good. Like I'm going on to the next thing day.
And the natural, like, organic relationship building will also occur. One thing that I subscribe to is, I don't want to work weekends. Like, I really do shut off and disconnect. But on Sundays, it's important to me. The mornings are important because I definitely have my church prayer meditation time. Um, and the prayer meditation is every day. I was like, if you want Jada to smile all day, then we're definitely gonna start the day with prayer and meditation. Um, but really on Sundays, that's whenever I start looking ahead and actually planning out from a time block perspective. And I even do it on Friday too to set myself up for Sunday because it's like, schedules are moving and ever changing. I'm working also, with folks that call me at, different times. So you can't follow, like, my schedule doesn't follow the T to a T, right? But I do think it's really important to have those things in place because you keep talking about the fact of, planning, thinking through, working on the future.
Yeah, I mean that's really what it comes down to is
Yeah,
like I mean one of the things I do is I go for about an hour walk every day.
nice.
And it's usually like got some music playing, but I'm thinking about like work stuff usually, right? Just replaying in your head. And then like this is
Oh,
sound for people that know me, it sounds weird, but like actually like meditation and starting to like just do those types of things
yeah,
I've never done before are
yep.
actually been very, very helpful for me to allow me to focus and decide where am I spending my time, where are my thoughts going to be at, like what do we got to do as a company, how do we get there. So yeah, some of my best ideas have come just like walking around my little neighborhood as I'm listening to some music, right? So, but
No, you're
that's
absolutely
it's
right.
great. Yeah.
Don't be ashamed of this meditation because it means something different for everybody, right? Because everyone, I talk a lot, and all my friends are just like, "There's no way that you're like you're sitting there still meditating." I go to quarterly silent retreats. I mean, I really believe in that time. I call it self leadership. So whether it's from a professional standpoint or personally, like you have to have a high level of self awareness for you to be able to, I think, really get to the goals, get to how you're showing up for other people in your life.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just talking to another CEO of a company. He was actually on Shark Tank, but now he's like
Yeah.
traveling all over the world. But yeah, he was just talking about the silent retreats, and this is like life changing for me. He's like sending me links and everything. So
You're
I'm like, oh,
like,
maybe I gotta go join you. I think he's in like Tokyo now or something. He's like, I'm gonna do one
oh,
like
wow.
next month. Come join me. And I'm like, oh, maybe we'll see. But yeah, it is helpful stuff, and it's just new territory for me. Things I haven't done before, but I think that's as I'm getting older here, right? It's trying to like do things you haven't done before and really
Mhm.
really figure yourself out so you can figure your business out.
Well, you actually said at the beginning, it's doing those things that you're not necessarily comfortable with. And it's evolving and changing because you got to be working on yourself, and then therefore working on the business. So, okay, from a leadership perspective, I'm gonna rein this back in. I know we were getting like very woo woo over there, but like, rein this back in from a leadership perspective. I I'm working on several programs. My focus now is really helping CEOs. I love founders and entrepreneurs. Well, founders that become CEOs, because like you said at the beginning, we can be really good. I was a really, really good HR, and then I decided to build a team. And so just because you're really good though at the one thing, being an accountant, an attorney, whatever the case may be, that trade doesn't mean that you're naturally going to show up and be like this fantastic leader. So what advice do you have?
Yeah, I mean, for us, what we did is we actually brought a consultant in because
Good.
as we were going through this process, we're like, okay, we now have like the person running my vehicle engineering department, he was a diesel technician 4 years ago. The
Mm,
person that's my director of operations 5 years ago, he was making pizzas and subs. Like I can go on and on through the departments.
yeah.
And those people, what we realized was they had great heart, great intention, capacity to learn, ability to learn, all the things. But what we
Mm-hmm.
weren't giving them was the tools to go be successful. So for
Mm-hmm.
us, we brought in a consultant. We started doing like quarterly leadership trainings. We just started to really talk through all the things, how to work with people and deal with people and giving them tools.
Mm,
And that can be difficult for some people, but most of them, they were really open to it. And they want to be better people. Like you said, people generally want to do great at their job. They want to have a job that they love. And I'm really thankful we got a lot of employees here where they'll say like, man, I just love working here. It doesn't feel like a job. And I'm like, that's great. Cause I feel the same way. It doesn't feel like a job to me either. Like I get excited when I wake up in the morning. And
I
the more
love
you
that.
make yeah, I mean, the more you make your people successful, the better they're going to do for you. And it's just that attitude that just kind of trickles down through everybody throughout the entire organization. So yeah, it's getting them the leadership classes, the training, coaching them when they see them doing something not appropriate, getting them to understand your company values and how you would deal with things. So it turned into me when people would come to me asking questions, I stopped answering them and started asking questions back. Right. So, when you do that, you get them to tell you what they think they should do or how they think they should handle it. And you're usually like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like you just need a little confidence booster here to go do that thing. But it just takes time and you got to go find the resources for people. If you don't give them the tools, how can you expect them to be successful? Like that was my big thing. It's never when a department's not executing, it's 99% time it's not the people, it's the leadership inside that department that's causing that problem. So I usually start at the top when I have an issue and work my way down, not the bottom up, because truthfully that's really what it is, and that's how I feel about it.
I want to know more about your leadership development strategy. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I didn't even realize it at the time. So what happened is um, I had a lot of ideas and they were starting to come across the finish line. So I was like, I need to bring in some more help. I don't have time to like keep doing new things and execute on the things that are coming across. So I brought in a gentleman I worked with for about 10 years and he was excited to come on board. And I thought the first thing he would do is take some of these projects. And the first thing he came and said was, dude, you need an HR department. like
I
we gotta
love
get
this
some,
guy.
yeah, yeah, we gotta get an HR guy. So immediately we went out and hired an HR person, an experienced one, and brought them in. And then right away, again, I thought he'd be like, okay, now let's go do all these cool projects. Like, no, we got growing pains here. We'll never execute unless we go solve some core fundamental problems here. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I understand it now looking back. And he was absolutely right. Like, unless we can really figure out how to execute as a company, I can come up with all the great ideas and all the great products and all the great services. It's not gonna matter. We're just gonna fail at them. So yeah, it was bringing a consultant. It started when he first came in. It was doing an employee survey. So it was an anonymous survey. That was a real gut punch. You have a perception on your company,
It
and then you get the
hurts.
results, and you're like, oh, okay, like I'm failing here on a bunch of things. So it really put in perspective for me. And we went through, it was a 2 year process that we went through this with this consulting
A
company.
2 year process.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it was leadership, it was strategic planning, setting goals and KPIs. And you can't sit some people through we did in like 1 day chunks, like every quarter. Cause there's no way
Okay.
you can just jam that down everyone's throat right away. We felt like, so we knew it was gonna be a process and we were okay with that. So it took a while, and we still use them periodically for some other one-off things and assistance on some certain things. But he taught us he taught us a lot of things we didn't know about ourselves and how organizations should be ran. And you used to do
Mhm.
case studies and learn about how other companies failed, like Blockbuster and all these
Yep.
companies. Like when you really study that stuff, you start to learn like, okay, how do we not repeat that mistake?
Exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And I think that what I like is your commitment to that two-year process because a lot of leaders could say, I'm not going to invest that on a quarterly basis for 2 years. You got to be kidding me. What am I going to get out of this? But that's actually how real change occurs, though. That's how real, that you're going to reap the benefits and actually reap them years to come whenever you're investing like that for your people.
So before that, I was like anti-consultant. I'm like, oh, what do they know about my business? How are they going to help me? I don't need that. And after that, I was like, man, that was like the best money we spent, and it was well into six figures through that whole process. But it really got
That's
us
amazing.
focused on the right stuff, and that's that.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden, we went from like just putting out fires and working on
Hmm.
in the business to all of a sudden we're spending that one day of training, and then we're talking about it for weeks with meetings and follow-ups and all the other things that happen afterwards, and all of a sudden yeah,
Hmm.
that time study 2 years later, we're not sitting putting out fires. We're actually
Yeah,
worrying and thinking and strategizing about what we got to do in the future to get to where we want to get to. So it does, but it starts from the top. Like there's no way. I was
hmm,
in another organization where they didn't have buy-in from the owner and CEO of a consultant strategy type thing, and it started well and it just fell because he didn't care about it. It didn't matter. He wasn't
absolutely.
on board. So it starts at the top, really.
No, and yeah, and what you're doing is really setting the example, but you're showing that investment, again to your team, and the right consultants can change the trajectory of your business, of your like the team dynamic and culture. So I'm a big fan. I feel like we've hit so many different buckets that I didn't even expect, but I love this. I want to I want to know also. So for anyone you have already mentioned this, but that doesn't know, I mean, you're the CEO of $100 million organization. Man. So what are your priorities? Like what are you thinking about, for the rest of this week, for the rest of this year, 3 years ahead? I know that's a loaded question, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not worried about like this week or this month or even like this year's revenue and products, right? Like those are already set in stone. We know what should come out, when it should come out, and what it should do. So like we've planned out through the end of the year. So really now it's like, okay, 2024 and beyond, like where are we going? So we had a 3-year goal that we set a little over 2 years ago, and it was $100 million in revenue and a couple other metrics in there, and we're right on pace for it. So we've already started being like, okay, we did a 3-year goal. Now let's do a 5-year goal. So now it's us really coming up with those, where's the goal, and then hitting all the steps in between. So our C suite's really focused on that. We're going through a bunch of already going through, it's already caused us to go through a bunch of like reorg changes. It's causing us to really decide what projects should we really work on. And that's the problem is when you don't have goals, then you don't know where you want to get to. You
exactly.
can't make decisions because you don't know if they're the right decisions or not. Like if I decide, hey, I just want to go pull out X
Mhm.
dollars per year out of the company
Yeah,
versus like I want to sell the company, I'm going to make two totally different decisions on,
you're
on what I do the
absolutely
next couple of years. And that was the problem I had for a couple of years there. You get financial advisors and accountants and CPAs like, what do you plan to do with the company, Tyler? Where are you planning to go? I'm like, I don't know. Like I was like doing what I do, and I
right.
yeah, I thought that was the right answer at the time, but I
Yeah,
realized, right, like, okay,
exactly.
I can't, I can't make this right decision. Do I hire the really expensive CEO and give him equity, or do I hire someone less just to get through and a controller? Like you cannot make those decisions if you do not know where you want
Mhm,
to go. And I see this like happen with my father's company right now. Him and his
mhm.
brothers own it. They're all getting up there in age, right, 60 plus. And now they're like, well, how do we exit? I'm like, man, you guys should have been working on that 10 years ago. Like that's really
Exactly.
not now, but at least start now. I mean, they always say, right, the best day to start something's yesterday, the second best
Ex
day is today, right?
That's right.
So start putting a plan together. Just don't let fate decide what happens to you and your legacy and your company and all the things. Like you have to put forth some energy into doing those things.
You're absolutely right. And I just interviewed a guest, Laura Nichols, and she focuses on succession planning for, founders, entrepreneurs. And it's eye opening also how many CEOs, but also, from an age perspective, they're 60s, 70s and haven't thought about, hey, who's my successor? What's my talent bench look like? And I'm like, listen, I mean, I think every leader should be thinking in that mindset for sure. Also because you want to build people, but also like the sustainability of the organization. I used to say I don't like the hit the bus, analogy. I like I won the lottery analogy, but
Yeah.
either way,
Yeah, what happens? Yeah, so we
yeah,
we had the same thing we went through. We're like, okay, every manager leader's got to have a successor, and you need to figure out who it is, and we got to put a plan together. So if you're gone tomorrow, like someone can step in and fill that role. And some of the plans worked out great, some of them not so much, and we learned some lessons there. But I mean, I'm in my early 40s, and like, yeah,
right.
the company has a life insurance policy on me, and there's like, because what happens if I die, right? I own the
That's
company.
exactly right.
Like, what
Yeah.
happens? Like, there's a significant asset here that has to keep running, and something's got to happen to it. So what are we doing? So every business owner like needs to think about that. It doesn't matter if it's $100 million business or $100,000 business. You got to do something with it and have a plan. So not having a plan is a plan to fail.
I think the biggest thing that I'm impressed with, it's not just your leadership and your humility and all character, all those pieces. I love all those pieces. You have to have those. It's cornerstone. However, it's actually the infrastructure that you've built. Like you are focusing on all the right pieces. Building the HR practices, obviously having the right partners in place, getting a consultant whenever you know that this is beyond maybe your scope and you need extra help. Like you are really mastering, well, I think the art of being a CEO because you're constantly looking for either that support or that process and you're then driving forward. But I think it's also rooted back in the fact of your goals. This is where I want to go. How do I get there?
Yeah. So I like the analogy I always use is like two guys in a city, they both own a pizza shop, right? They both make pizza. And one guy gets to like one store or two stores, and that's where he goes. And the other guy, who's got crappier pizza, by the way, has like 10,000 stores 10 years later, right? Like
Right.
how did that happen? And it's because the one guy was worried about just taking care of his customers that day. The other guy was worried about like, how do I get to 10,000 stores? And it
Sure.
just, like you said earlier, it makes you choose different things. So I've had the same mentality, and a lot of this comes down to why you do something, right? So
Mm,
for some people, that why is like, I just want to make a bunch of money, and that's never been my why. It
mm,
was, my why's changed. It was like, well, I quit my job, I got to provide for my kids, right? Like I'm
mhm,
low income. Then it was like, can I go build a business? Can I go build a scalable business? And now
mhm,
really, like we sit here and we're like, man, how many companies have the chance to impact positively their industry and the way it works? And we really feel we're one of those companies. So
mhm.
when you know where your North Star is, like you said, it gets a lot easier to make decisions on, okay, where are we going and what's important to us. So the nice thing about not having shareholders and me being the owner is I can choose to have no profit if I want, or a lot of profit. I can
Okay.
pick and choose where I want to invest that money and where we want to go as a company. And when you bring on investors, a lot of times a lot more short-sighted. Like, okay, we need a 3-year ROI of at least 12%, blah, 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 blah. And you're
Yeah.
driven to that. So for us, it's create a lot of flexibility in where we invest money and what we want to accomplish as a company.
Yeah, that's a different kind of pressure and perspective. And I don't judge anyone. It's whatever the journey is, and that makes sense. However, I do think I resonate the most with your style. Um, we didn't have debt. Willis HR. I really believe in bootstrapping. I think it also helps you in just focusing on the real next steps. And so, and prioritizing those next steps too. But I resonate with everything that you're saying. I've always been a huge fan of you. And then I actually had on one of the conference, I think it was a growth summit conference. I had the
Yeah.
interview opportunity you were on the panel. I was asking questions and I'm like, man, this is so cool. I was actually like, I was a fan. I played it cool though. I played it
Well,
real
no, no, that yeah, I remember meeting you there for the first time. I think it was at the baseball stadium, was where that conference was. So yeah, GrowCo has been a great thing in Columbia. I'm
Mhm.
still involved in it. I meet with the cohort group. I love
Good.
I love getting involved in the local community, and I haven't done a lot of that in the past. I'm trying to do even more of that and get involved, encourage other entrepreneurs to get involved.
Nice.
South Carolina is a great place to own a company, and
Oh,
there's a lot of great talent here, a lot of great resources. So I'm all about trying to help everybody else around here keep scaling up their company.
that's the key. I think it's how are you helping people and solving problems, and that's has been my focus as well, and the path forward. And I think if everyone can have that mantra, then the world's going to be a whole better place. But they're also going to be super successful because anytime you're showing up to help people and solve problems, it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, you're saying it right. And a lot of business owners get that wrong. They think they're selling a product or a service, and they're not. They're selling a solution to a problem. And
Mm-hmm.
once they wrap their heads around that, customer service, marketing, sales becomes much, much easier to
Mm,
describe what you're doing and the value it creates. So it's a lot, not a lot of people get that. So it's a very important part that obviously I know, but a lot of people
mhm.
get used on. You're not building, you're not building a house. You're building a home for a family, right? Like it's that mentality
Exactly.
you have to have.
Exactly. You're completely right. All right, last question. I've taken a ton of your time, but all right, one piece of advice to that founder turned CEO. What is one thing that you would say to this individual in front of you?
Yeah. So if I have a founder and they're growing their company, like you got to get out of your comfort zone and stop doing the things you're doing. Like whatever you're doing, figure out a way to not do them so you can go work on the next thing. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck where you're at. Like you have to get out of your comfort zone, go find new things to do, hire people, empower them. They're going to do it differently. That's okay. As long as it gets done, that's the key.
That's the key. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And as my dog is also would love to say goodbye to you as well. And so
I Hey, we talked before. I remember those days, right? Like I'm doing videos. I got the dog barking, kids knocking on the door,
that's right.
doorbell ringing from the UPS guy. I remember those days fondly now when I look back on them.
That's right. Tucker's very passionate about diesel laptops. Okay.
I like
Exactly. Well, again, thank you so much. And if someone was wanting to just learn more about you, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best way. So go on LinkedIn and search for Tyler Robertson or Tyler Diesel. I'll pop right up. I still post on there several times a week about our journey and all the things we're doing. So I'd love to connect with people on there.
Thank you so much. And I actually am going to send a recap to all of my, email list of everything that I've even learned from this episode. And I think you're going to inspire so many more entrepreneurs and CEOs. But I think that I'm probably, I can't say jealous, but maybe jealous of your employee base because they are going like they have the right leader, the like all the ingredients of really doing great work, helping the community, and just feeling valued. And so I'm very proud of you, and I'm very thankful for everything that you're doing for the world around you, for your team, but also for the South Carolina community too.
Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really like appreciative of the employees we have and the people that are rooting for us and pushing us along and cheering for us. So it's been a great journey. We still like to say around here we have a lot of runway ahead of us. So we're really excited about the future, the next 5 years. I think we're going to be even bigger and a lot stronger than we are today. So that's the path we're on.
I love it. And with that, I'm saying goodbye and wishing you the very best as you are following, liking, and subscribing to the Jada Willis Experience.